Welcome, everybody, back to Segal Talks here at the Martini Segal Center at the Graduate Center in CUNY. It's our last week in this incredible year of 2020, where we are hosting these talks. It's, of course, a very emotional year. There's also for us, being so close to the new years, where we hope that 2021 will be a different one. So this is an important week for us. We started out the talks in March. I think it was Taylor Mack, Kirsten Martin from here, Thomas Ostermeyer from the Schaubühne Berlin, and others. And this year we are closing it out. We had Bonnie Maranka from the PAJ magazine of the Journal of Performance and Art. Today is with us the Límite company that comes out of the living theater tradition, and tomorrow we have the great Norican Poetry Cafe. They have spoken words artists with us, and it's been quite a ride this year. We spoke to over, I think, 150, 200 artists in 150 sessions from 50, 60 countries around the world. Most probably this is the only archive of a profession that archived the moment of Corona across the globe. We didn't know when we started this out, and we also didn't know that it would take so long and that how big the dimensions would be, but we had a feeling in the beginning that this is important. And we hear so much from politicians, virologists, economists and others, but we here at the Segal has always felt we need to hear from the artists, from theater and workers, from theater practitioners, and to get their insights, how they create meaning for themselves in these unprecedented times where really reality is a stranger than fiction. Artists have been close to the right side of justice, the right side of progress, as we think, in this complex struggle for freedom and liberty, and what they have to say is of significance, and perhaps we should have listened to that earlier, or many plays dealing with all the complications we are dealing with now, also the ecological disaster, political disasters. And we want to just also take this moment to thank HowlRound for hosting us. It's been a very big commitment, and we have Vijay with us here. He is one of the producers and one of the makers that makes HowlRound what it is, this beloved, I would say, online and streaming service that also was created in a time that perhaps foreshadowed the significance that the digital space, the screens, the Skype, and now of course Zoom will take over. The first time I used Zoom in my life was when I had my first Segal talk in March, and I think HowlRound put something together. So Vijay, how has it been for you this year of producing online for the theater?
Yeah, it's been very busy, and we've been so honored to have organizations like yours and many other organizations kind of using our online platform, our support, and this kind of peer-produced infrastructure to have these kinds of connections and conversations and learning from each other. So that's been really rewarding for us to help that kind of thing, and really necessary, I think, in this moment. And I feel that, you know, these kinds of connections that we're able to make, especially now since pandemic, you know, the ability for us, especially in the global north, to be connecting with artists in the global south, it's we've done that more during the pandemic than ever before. So that's one of the kind of like you know, hidden kind of good things that have come out of all of this. And so I really hope these new behaviors and connections continue on into the future.
Yeah, no, really thank you. I think this is an enormous contribution. I think Carol Martin in TDR, the great TDR Theater and Drama Review, you know, she also interviewed you and showcased HowlRound in a way as a new model of producing. So in a way, this also is a para-theatrical event. We talk, people perform themselves, they talk about their work, you know, their lives, and it's kind of a new form, a hybrid form that came out of it. And I think the production model that HowlRound created for readings, to decentralize it away from the big metropolitan cities, from the metropolitan supremacy, also in a way, you know, that is a democratic access to the arts, and people can participate around America, but now also around the world, I think is a great thing. So really, really wanted to say thank you, and it's wonderful to have you with us. Normally we have Thea, who is already visiting her family in the Bay Area, so we want to say thank you to her again. Actually, we should write her an email now and say, where are you? We can start or something. But let's come to our guests today. Thank you, Vijay, for joining us. Thank you. We have a significant, I think, a company with us, a company that came out, sprung out of the earth of a legendary couple that created theater, of the living theater of originally from Judas-Molina and Julian Bach, then Hanon, Reznikov, and this is a company that formed, if I understand right, also somehow in this time of Corona, who's keeping on a tradition. So it stands for many companies, perhaps across the US, we do not know about, who formed, who are thinking about how to continue work, who are struggling, and who are trying to create meaning for us, for audiences, but also for themselves. They choose to work in theater as a way of life, a way of living. I think Bonnie Maranka, who was with us yesterday, pointed out that perhaps artists in a way are the last free members of this society. We live in this hyper-capitalistic a world where everything is a commodity, and there's so much about the commercial value of what we do that artists perhaps are the ones who do it, but it's so hard to do. It's hard to be an artist. It's hard to do theater anywhere in the world, but it is especially hard here in New York City. Of course, we would have loved to have the great Judith Malina with us. She had been at the Segal Center for many, many evenings as a participant. She was acting in Frank O'Hara plays, talking about her Piscato notebooks, or participating in discussions on theater and history and politics and poetry. She had her moon poems often at our place. But she also came in her last years when she was in the old age home. She would drive in from New Jersey to the Segal Center and listen to our events and participate, engaging in our discussions. And she was really upset with me that I didn't create a Segal bar or a Segal cafe. She said, there's no place where I can go in New York. In the old days, there was a bar where we go, where we hang out. There's nowhere I can go meet someone who I know or where I feel at home. And I always think about that. And a little bit, it was always the idea of the Segal to create a community. And maybe one day we have to create the Judas-Molina bar. And everybody who is here has been working with her and were inspired by her work. So with us is the Límite, a company. And we're going to hear from them a little bit how it is to create theater or think about theater in the time of Corona here in New York City, how to create a new company. And so we have with us Jessica Daugherty from the company, Dennis, who is Yueh-Yeh and who is directing a lot of the work, Alvin Gaines-Molina, and the great Soraya Broukhim, who also directed at the Segal Center and part of Japanese Playwrights Project. So Dennis has worked with us. So it's a company we are close to. We had Tom Walker with us here on the Segal. He gave one of, I think, the more really interesting and important conversations. Maybe might be for anybody who's interested, also inspiration to go back what he had to say. He has been with the living since 1972. And this is kind of a variation, an update, a modulation, a new form of a theater tradition that has been so significant. We had Hilary Miller, who said so many ideas out of the 50s who were done in living rooms in the underground became so big and important in the 60s, and the 60s still have such an impact that, as we said yesterday, also people saying, why do we talk still about the 60s and the 70s? But we talk about it because it was important. So this is very close to that, but it's also trying to reinvent, to recreate, as Heiner Müller, the great German playwright and director, said about Bertolt Brecht, if you use Brecht without criticizing him, it's treason. You should go to jail. So you have to find new ways of doing things. And it is our, guiding motto in a way, that Brecht said, new times need new forms of theater, and definitely we live in different times and in new times. So welcome here to the Segal Talks. I always say it's about listening, very listening, and then I go on and talk, so I hope you will forgive me. So Jessica, Dennis, Shadows, Soraya, welcome everybody here. And so where are you? And let's begin with Jessica, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your work, what you're doing in the...
Sure. Thank you for having us. Thank you to the Segal Center and HowlRound. We've collaborated with you over the course of this year, and it was really nice to feel like we had a home, even in this ephemeral, sort of liminal world that we live in. So thanks to all of you. I'm Jessica. Right now I live on Cowlitz and Clackamas land in the Northwest, also known as Portland, Oregon, with my partner, Brad Hamers, who's also a member of the collective. Right now, it's about 9:11 in the morning. And I came to the theater out of a documentary film perspective, but I also am a performer. So I met Judith in 2014 when they were doing the outdoor theater piece, No Place to Hide. And that's how I met all these amazing people that are here with us today, and the rest of the collective, the people that would become Límite. So I'm very grateful that we found each other and all believe in the need for human connection and how art can facilitate that. I think a lot of us look at ourselves as facilitators, not just actors, directors, or writers, conduits for human growth. And so it was a challenge at the beginning of this year. We really launched the collective, and as participatory theater practitioners, now we can't touch people.
Yeah, it's such a different world out here, and everything.
Yeah, we can't really have eye contact either.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So
let me ask Dennis, because before we come to the founding of the company, Dennis, where are you at the moment? And tell us a little bit about you and your work and how you came.
Yeah, I'm currently in Queens. That's where I'm based. And originally I'm from Taiwan. I joined the Living Theater in 2012. At the same time, going after my own passion, which is directing and writing plays that I think resonate with something that I care the most. And after a while, I took care of Judith all the way until she passed away. And later on, we decided to start this company, Límite, together to continue the legacy in a somewhat different format. Yeah. So even if with my work, it's still similar to, you know, what we do, what we have been doing with the Living Theater, what we are doing with Límite.
Mm-hmm. Soraya, tell us a bit about you and your work, and how do you fit in this puzzle?
I'm currently in Manhattan, where I was born and raised, and actually the room where I was born and raised.
Like you were born?
Well, I mean, like I came here since I was
Yes.
little, slept here, ever since. Now it's full of stuff, just storage. I was in Queens before, like Dennis. So I joined the Living Theater in 2010. We started with this play Korach, which according to Judith was the first anarchists in the Torah. And I've been part of it ever since, and joined these lovely people that I love so much, each and every one of them with Límite. And I've been an actress since I was 14 years old, went into directing, encouraged, thanks to Franck. And I write poetry and other things. I'm a healer, an Ayurvedic healer. Yeah, so I think that the title of this company, Límite, which means limitless and no limits, says so much, because Judith, I would tell Judith when I would have conversations in her bedroom on Clinton Street, I would say, I want to do so many things that are just variety, you know, science, art, everything. And she said, well, you can do it all. You're limitless. And I think that's just so amazing that this is the name that we came up with.
She came up with, yeah, that's quite something. And she really meant that. She did not just say it, she meant that.
Yeah.
Limitless. Shadow. Sorry, we have you at the end a bit, but tell us a bit about you and your work. Where are you?
Currently, I'm in Las Vegas. I came back here at the beginning of December. I was in Brooklyn prior to that this year, in hopes of actually fully launching Límite live. And then COVID happened. But I come from the dance background. I'm a movement. Movement is my specialty. I start collaborate. I call myself like a satellite member of Living Theater, because I've always been in, all my work with the Living Theater has always been in the West or in Mexico. So I consider myself a satellite member. I started working with the Living in 2013 at Burning Man, when they built a black box theater, and I was part of a different collective back then. I was based in San Francisco, which we were doing Buto under Bad Uncle Sister. And from there, I just stay in the site of Límite. I joined them towards the end of their tour of Latin America last year, doing Electric Awakening. And ever since then, I'm like one of those little animals that just like clang on to the core members of the Living Theater. And when this opportunity comes to launch a new theater, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I've been blessed and fortunate to be surrounded by these amazing creatives. And I'm happy to be here today and share this moment with all of you.
Thank you, guys. And you know, not most probably, I think it is, we can say that since World War II, it hasn't been so difficult for theater artists. There was tough times in the 50s, there was tough times in the 60s, also in the 70s when New York City got broke. But
I guess it depends what kind of theater artist you are.
Yeah, it's true. But it was a tough time to make a living, to work, to form a company right now in this time. So tell us about it. Is the moment of the 2020 year, is that connected to the formation of the company? Is it putting an imprint on you guys that would not have happened if it would be a normal, complicated year?
I would say first thing the COVID has taken away from us is the space, the physical space. It really pushes us into thinking what are the possible alternatives for a theater company to survive, and push us into thinking how we can embrace the technology world. Because theater has a tradition of, you know, forget about what technology has advanced. We still have our space, we still have our audience members, but this is the moment that, well, those things are non-existent. How do we embrace Zoom, for instance? How do we utilize all those platforms, for instance? And when we started this company, it wasn't really necessary in our conversation, but when we sat down all together, it became part of something integral to our conversation that we can never not talk about it. That's the first thing that we definitely, you know, share and discuss the most.
Jessica, you mentioned earlier, you know, the time of COVID and the creation of the company. I mean, you, in a big way, you were, even if you think about it before, but you guys got together this year. What does that mean?
Well, it means that, you know, if we wanted to continue the move to connect people to make participatory theater, we had to become digital, right? So we had to embrace the social media where everyone hangs out. We had to learn how to communicate on Zoom, which we're still trying to perfect. You know, we ended up, you know, doing weekly Zoom calls that anyone could jump in on, just to make sure that we still felt connected to each other. And so we had to kind of grow a third arm in that way, because we just relied so much on being with each other. Brad and I had planned to come for a retreat, sort of, workshop to be together, develop new projects. And then it turned out that we couldn't come to New York because of the travel restrictions, the 14-day required quarantine and things. So even though, we still want to be together, we tried and we couldn't. So it's sort of it's a test in perseverance. Al Límite also meaning like you're at the limit. And when we perform live together, a lot of the, I think, real transformative moments happen when we're exhausted, when we've been performing for an hour, 2 hours at full speed, and we get really tired. That's when the real transcendent understanding comes out. And I like to think that this is just another one of those tests. And as we go into 2021, it's not like magically it's going to go away. So we're practicing our endurance together, and I'm really looking forward to what comes out of that exhaustion.
So Soraya, you talked a little bit about the spirit of the company, but what's the vision? What's the mission? What do you guys want to do?
I think that I want to say that there was an exhibition that I saw on Gertrude Stein, and she said that, she was a collector, and she said, collect the art that is now, that is of the time. And I think that this company really represents of this time of right now. And I want to mention, like, there's Cypress and Monica and Leah and Philip, who are also part of this company. Did I miss anybody else? No, that's everyone, right? Yeah. And
Brad.
And Brad.
Always someone else, yes.
And everyone has, there's no hierarchy, I feel, in this company. It's like the first time that we all individuals have something to give and to offer. And we don't just offer one thing, we offer multiple things. Everyone has a different skill and strength that makes unity, and that there's strength in this unity. I think it was really beautiful about the it's more about, instead of being a vision, it's more about the feeling of the company, is that we really acknowledge each other where we are at that time.
So what did you guys do this year? Like, let's say, what kind of performances, or say, what happened this year? This is basically the year you started out. What did you do?
So Jessica mentioned that every week we would meet up, and actually every week whenever there was a talk or a conversation, we always brought something into fruition. And so one of the projects that everyone was part of all over the world, actually, not just us. So the branch, the lens of the company goes out to the whole world of whoever we've ever touched, and whoever can participate. We asked everybody that was ever been part of us to write, to express how they feel during COVID as a beginning, middle, and ending. And everyone wrote and responded to that. And out of that, each person would, we'd start with the beginning, and then the middle, and then the ending. And we would do a response, a video response, a digital response, because that's all we really had. To anyhow, with the audio or visual or painting or anything. And we would respond to that, write to those writings, that poem that you would choose, and then create something from that digitally. And then we would post it on YouTube, on Instagram, and was one of the biggest things. But there were other things that were created that they can talk about as well.
Right. If you look up hashtag Al Límite Liminal Archive, you can see all of the entries from people from Brazil, Mexico, and the US, and other places around the world.
Yeah, that's quite something. Let's talk a little bit about the idea of the legacy. If I understood right, you're also out on the street. So there's a pipeline in Brooklyn where you did something. So you're carrying on a tradition in a way that, a path that was, created before by the living. So tell us a little bit, what is your idea? What's the idea behind? Tell us about this project, but also as a forming, founding ideas. What is that about? What you're doing?
So I think, you know, the online project that we did was actually inspired by when we were still spending time with Judith. We always embraced the moment that we were together, such as like Passover. And this particular year, we actually did the Passover. We had the scripture that was written, adapted by Judith Molina, and we were reading it via Zoom. We realized that we could create something that's ritualistic, which is always the legacy of the living theater, something that's super ritualistic, that breaks the quotidian life, that put people into a liminal space so that, you know, eventually at the end of the production, you feel invigorated, you gain a new energy of some sort. That was the beginning of that project. So we were trying, really experimenting on how do we incorporate the Instagram, the micro art, the minuscule art, so to speak. And for the Broukhim, the pipeline project, it was really, you know, Judith, when we were still in a living theater, oftentimes we went onto the street to just join the protest, to really stand with the people that are oftentimes underheard, underrepresented. And Monica, one of our members, she has been highly involved in activist movements, especially against climate change, against all those polluting companies. And when we knew this pipeline issue, we instantly jumped right in and say, you know what, even it's COVID-19, this issue is affecting everybody. It's
what is the issue? I also wasn't aware of it. What's the pipeline?
So it was actually a fracking gas pipeline that's going through the northern part of Brooklyn. And the gas pipeline does not benefit the Brooklyn residents. Instead, that pipeline just go through the Brooklyn and then transporting the gas into, I believe it's Long Island. And when National Grid was doing this project, they didn't host any town hall meeting. They didn't talk to the local residents. And we residents started to feel like, oh, maybe it was just the fixing of the repairing of the water pipeline. We didn't pay too much attention to it until when they went into the last phase of the construction. We realized that it was actually fracking gas and it's polluting the area. And the bill went high if you are National Grid users. Nobody knows anything. And we decided to, no, let's collaborate with the local residents and then really try to come out to stop the construction of the pipeline. The fight is still continuing.
Yeah.
And what's evil about it is that the pipeline runs through all the Black and brown communities of Brooklyn. That's what's harsh about it. And people are being faced now with the $184 million price tag of building that pipeline. As Dennis said, doesn't benefit Brooklyn, doesn't benefit New York. It goes to the highest bidder of that frack gas. And if New York State passed no fracking, but yet they're releasing frack gas, meaning they transform the liquid gas into air gas so they can easily compress it and easily transport it.
And Josh Fox did that documentary Gasland, right? That really clearly shows the environmental impact and that has. So yeah, so you continue using form of theater to raise awareness of you know what is
and
it does.
And the irony of it is that it also runs through all the green spaces in those neighborhoods. That's what's mind-blowing about it. Not only the green spaces, the schools, the churches, everything that where people gathered, it seems like it's almost targeted by it, you know? And that's what's really, really like almost incomprehensible why we're even doing this, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Don't the companies call these areas that they plan to go through sacrifice zones or something? So the name of the project is, or some of the language is, Brooklyn is not a sacrifice zone, you know, don't come through here.
And I think, Shadow, you filmed one of the performances that were done, right? On a moving, I remember it was a moving cart that was.
Oh, yeah, it's a bit different. That we also have a mobile unit that Monica had brought up to the collective. It's a platform that's attached to 4 bikes. And we've used that to promote the pipeline as well, against the pipeline. And also we also use that for anti-ice performances. After the pipeline was done, we actually took it apart and took it to the Brooklyn Detention Center and performed in front of the detention center.
That's where you also did performances in the
as well.
detention centers, and really it's quite remarkable. I would not have known about that pipeline actually. I've never seen any articles about it.
And the funny thing is, like, nobody knew about it. People that live underneath the pipeline did not know about it until we start performing and start putting all those banners and flyers.
When we talk about theater and new forms, you know, of course, there is the famous saying, Beckett also used to, there's nothing new under the sun, and it's true. But there's also reuse, reinvention of things. We had here Annie Hamburger, you know, who did such fantastic productions outside with On-Guard Arts. She was a pioneer in that work, not only with Reza Abdou, but also much before. We have Bertie Ferdman, who talked about the offsites. You know, how can we use spaces? Well, that we should use spaces with COVID or without. We have to, you know, find different ways, be outside the walls of the theater. So the Living Theater has done that in a long time. So tell us a little bit about the work you did already with Judith on the streets. How would you organize that? How does it work? Because you don't, as we now know, you don't need, you know, the theater to do something. Even so, all theater people in New York now say, who have theater? Oh, we can't do anything. Our buildings are closed. You guys never had a building, you used to theater. But tell us a bit, what did you learn? How does it work? How do you use streets? How do you use public places as theater stages?
Well, it was used so many times, but one of the particular moments that struck me was that when we took 7 meditations on sadomasochism out, which was a play that was done in 1970, which was to voice out all of the punishments and torture that were being done in Brazil. I think it was in 1973. And Judith and Julian and the collective, the company wrote this piece, and then we brought it back. I think this was in 2011. When we brought it back at, no, 2010 when we brought it back at first. And then we brought it back to Washington Square Park and to Union Square. And the way it worked is that we already had a piece that was created. And when we were on Washington Square Park, we just all came together and we set it like a stage. We were in place and we started and we just did it. And people would just watch and participate. And because at the end of 7 meditations, we approach the people and say, you know, what can we do to change? And what in your vision can we do to change? And we would have a discussion with each individual privately at the end of the show.
So how does it work? Do you ask for a permission? How do you define the permission? How does it, you just say, hey, we're going to be there. You send out an email or you send out Instagram, or tell us a bit, how does it work?
Yeah.
No.
It is a very interesting one thing. Well, during the Living Theater time, we definitely, like, whenever there's people, wherever there's people, we go there. We want to carry out the message. We want to express the message to the people. So whenever there's people, we're always there. Washington Square or High Line. And funny quick story is when we were doing No Place to Hide Outdoor, we performed at High Line. We didn't realize that it was a private park, which means you have to ask for permission to perform. We simply just show up. We said it's a public space. Everybody can come here to see things. And the performance gathered about 100 or so people, up to the point that they have to send security guards to kick us out. At the time, Judith was with us and Leah was the director. She came up to the policemen, the cops, and said, what's the matter? What's the problem? It's a public space. We were entitled to do things. We're the public. We're the citizens right here. What's the matter? They said you have to shut it down because you don't have permit. And she simply said, well, shut down yourself. There's 100 people. You can talk to them. If they're willing to cooperate, you can shut it down. Otherwise, we're gonna be done in 10 minutes. You can let us finish and we're gonna leave. It's your call. So what they did is they let us finish. And we came back the next day, still without a permit.
So in Washington Square Park, also you put like this chalk, or how do you define the space where you go? How does it work? How did it tell us a little bit?
There's
It's
also,
almost,
sorry.
it's almost like pretty magical in some sense. Like I find it that audience are willing to engage into something like what's happening there. You know, like fine example, we were rehearsing the Brookline piece in Greenpoint, and it's pretty almost like there's nobody around there. It's almost isolated. All you have there at Greenpoint was all the trucks and all the workers. But the workers were engaged to a point where like, what are you guys doing? To a point where like they were standing there and watching, even though they work for National Grid, they end up watching us. And because the curiosity brings the audience. In that sense, to me, like our street theater, you just bring it to the street and people just gravitate to it because people are wanting it. People want to see stuff. People want to be engaged. And I think that's the beauty of like street performance, like license or no license, like bring it to the street and people will gravitate to it.
Right. We want to diffuse the perceived separation between theater, performance, and life. There's no fourth wall. We are in space and we perform as individuals with a common idea. And if the people in Tompkins Square Park key into that idea, they actually become part of the performance with us.
So you have a monologue, or you have speeches recorded, you have some kind of a costume. You say we're going to do that tomorrow at 2 p.m. You send out an Instagram or an email, and then you perform and you find your audience. Like 100 people is what people are always very happy if they have so many in a small theater, right?
Yeah, but usually we meet up beforehand because, you know, we also run daily workshops where we teach people how to do this. A Day in the Life of the Living was called originally. And when we created a piece around Flatiron, that was the last time we taught once. That wasn't the last time, but we create a piece. There's a structure. You have to know where you are. There's a discipline. There is like any performance. There's warm up. There's a consensus, and then we walk out there together, and then we take a space that we chose and we start. That's usually how it is. We usually meet up before.
So I wanted to mention also, you asked about location. There's another aspect to some of this work, and that's, I guess you would consider it direct action. And that means, you know, for us, that means taking a theater piece that we've devised with the message to a specific location or a specific group of people who we want to share that message with. So let's say in the 2016 Know Your Rights tour, we wanted to send some messages to Boeing, to Monsanto, and a couple of other organizations that are actively damaging our environment and communities. We didn't want to let them know that we were coming. We didn't want to ask their permission to come and send this message to them or perform for them. So that's another aspect of this as well. Anyone can get together with a group of people with a common problem in mind and come up with something to say about it and go and take action. Sort of like that I was talking about.
You went in front of the Boeing headquarters, or what did you do?
Yes, we on that tour, we traveled to Chicago where there's a big headquarters there. We performed right in front of the front door, causing the security folks to be alerted, maybe causing some of the very busy workers in Chicago to at least turn their heads to see what we were talking about. And we also went to Berkeley and a couple of other places and performed 7 meditations. And after that, we brought the audience out into the streets, because that's what Julian and In Paradise Now, the theater is in the streets. So we continue.
In a way, you're using techniques that were developed in the 60s, 50s, 60s, or Boalsberg and others, and you're adapting them to the 21st century. does it work? And what is new about it? What's different?
I think something that we are still doing, it's not necessarily new per se, is we're just getting accustomed to what is happening nowadays, which is there's a lot of technology. So even something that's as old as, in the 60s, when you go on the street to do highly stylized biomechanical movements, it attracts people's attention because people nowadays are not used to it. So when you have a group of people really committed into doing a certain specific thing, it instantly draws attention. So we just remind people that there is this tool that's still timeless. But just because we're moving into a technological world doesn't mean the old tool is no longer working. And that is also the way that we do street theater, which is always prepare ourselves. So no matter what happened on the street, you stay with your own message. You have to trust your ensemble members that they're always going to back you up. So when we were doing state of direct action, we need to talk about what's going to happen if the cops show up. Who is going to be in charge of de-escalating any tension? And how do we safely leave out the space? But also at the same time, when we enter the public space, how do we come in with a very strong, determined attention towards the place that we are performing so that people can instantly tell that it's a space that's going to make something happen, so to speak. It's a very similar way as if you go to Washington Square, you will see people, the break dancers, they are trying to like call out people, say like, hey, we're gonna have a show, we're gonna have a show. Sometimes we do that, but sometimes all that's needed is just a group of people in costume coming to the space with the commitment and do the show. Instantly, people will be drawn without much ado.
Fine example was that when we took the mobile unit, it's just me, Monica, and Leia, three of us driving that thing. And there's Leia in the middle of the platform in somewhat like a chicken wire cage for the anti-ice performance. And we literally stopped traffic. Like to a point where like people were honking because people in the cars were engaged. That was not our idea. Our idea is to take the platform to another space, and on a route there was like a hard bike ride up. So like we caused traffic, and because like the car that was next to us was following us, were full. I believe that they're migrants, so they can attach to the message of what we're performing. And as Danny said, like we can engage audience without even asking them to be engaged. Seeing someone in costume in the middle of Brooklyn on a bike, on a platform attached to 4 bikes. That's like, I want to see that. What are they doing? Curiosity sparks that. And I think we're fortunate enough to like, we have so many creative minds in our collective that, can come in and out and put something on a table where something this simple yet amazing can be executed and grab the minds of audience whether they want it or not.
There was we all performed as a collective in Mexico, and it was the day of the Women's March, and as Shadow says, it's like really magical, and we were just walking and walking and walking and walking, and we created this piece called Electric Awakening, and we took parts of Electric Awakening, which was a story of going from death to birth. And at that magic moment, right before all these people were about to start the march, we just started this. We started the Electric Awakening, and a part of it, and everyone just stopped. And it was, there were so many people. It was so incredibly magical. Everyone just paid attention and stopped and watched us and let us do the performance. And then we dispersed, and then they started marching. There was also a moment in, I wasn't there, but I remember Leia telling me the story that there was a moment in, it was a Mormon area, right? And there's this
In
performance.
Salt Lake City.
Right, in Salt Lake City, and there's this performance that we do where we meet each other very slowly. It's a moment of love where we make love without touching, and it was same-sex lovemaking, and did it right in the middle of that. Right, there was like
The reflection pool, which represents the union between a man and a woman only.
and we went beyond that.
Right.
Of course.
We got kicked out. But that's what we went to do. I think one thing you might be asking about.
In the Mormon kind of stronghold, in their pool of unity, like a couple of same sex would say there should be the same rights for everyone. So you went in there, you put actually your bodies at risk. So you do, as Camus said, you create dangerous art. So as Pasolini said, we have to throw our bodies into life. So you take a risk, right? When you go out there.
Absolutely. And it, as Dennis said, it takes a certain commitment to each other, a confidence. And I think that's something that Judith and Julian really cultivated. We work with something we call magic casting, which is a combination of trust in yourself and trust in the people that you're collaborating with and working with. Your awareness of the space. So you're aware of what's going on inside the performance, but you're also aware of who's watching and the environment and how it's changing as you perform, so that you can bring it in or so that you can react appropriately. If there's a bulldozer coming for you, for instance, or a police officer who's going to try to come break up the performance, there's this awareness and this trust. And I think that every theater company or every performance group can develop this together. And it just takes some trust.
Yeah, the other thing, like if we're talking about techniques, I remember a small anecdote that one of the members in the Living Theater asked about Judith, how to get into the character that she's portraying. And the response was, there was nothing that's called character. It was all about yourself performing in the spot. So whenever you are performing, you always keep it to yourself. You are there. You are present. It's not the character that's present. It's you that's present. So even piggyback to what Jessica just said, the trust is you need to believe into the message that you are trying to convey. You need to believe why you are there. You need to convince yourself you are there for a good cause, and you need to trust the people around you. Same as when we did a Revolting the Storias, when we did the reading, the talk that we had, it was really not about how do you portray the miners or the miners' life. It's all about you at this particular day, election night. What do you believe that the future of America is going to be like? What do you think? How do you fathom by doing this project actually help advocate for the things that you believe, so to speak? So it's all about preparing yourself more than preparing yourself for acting out a character.
So I would like to hear from you. What do you believe in? Why do you guys make theater and not painting or another art form? Why do you do theater? What does it do? And has COVID changed that a bit? So I would really like to hear from every one of you. Why are you doing this?
I think that one of the things that is like transformational, radical transformation and like leadership, that we all lead our own lives and we can all help each other. And I think one of the ways of actually finding the collective idea is first, of course, what do we need? What does our community need? And we ask our community when we work with other people, what do you feel you need in the community right now, where you are, the country you are, the time you are, and where you are, what do you need? And then from there, with the tools that we have to perform and to create art, we think about, okay, how can we change that? And what can we do to voice that? And from there, art is created and we led.
Yeah, it's you don't, sometimes for me, I don't have to believe certain things. When I walk on the street, I look around. When I see people that are not having a house to live in, that are shivering in cold, or the people that are waiting to get food, it's already a good cause for us to continue doing what we do, because it's only human to really care about other human beings. And oftentimes, especially in big cities, sometimes you forget that you need to do certain things for the benefit of the human being itself. Yeah.
Yeah, theater is the art form that represents to me action. And it was when I first was reading Judith, some of Judith's writing, it dawned on me. She talks about actors, but not in the sense of like Uta Hagen or, you know, Stanislavski and Ethan Hawke, but actor as an activist, someone who can take action and change the environment that they're in with purpose. So it really changed what I perceived as what theater is, or who the actor is inside of that, and what the possibilities are as a human being, not just okay, I'm going to become a performer now and perform this story or this character like Dennis talked about. So I don't want to lose that in our for humanity. We have to keep it, exercising it.
I look at Límite and the formation of Límite as my personal lifeline. I moved to Brooklyn earlier this year in January in hopes of gathering together as a group to create repertoire, because we had planned tours earlier this summer that, you know, was all canceled because of COVID. But then when COVID happened, then I realized that everything is destroyed. And then a quote that came up to me throughout this year is, destruction is a prerequisite for creating identity. By living through that the past year, and it was like, it gave me hope that, yeah, we might not be able to perform in life, but we can develop our own identity creatively. And that kept me alive, that hopes, that idea that, yeah, we might not be in the same space, but if we just keep pushing little by little, we will come off of it better than when we came into it. And that, I think, to me, was my saving grace for my creative mentality. You know, and I was like, yeah, because as I said, for me, all my work has been participatory, in contact with other people, you know, with my co-performers, with the audience. You know, I've been, the past 10 years in my performance have been, how do we bring the audience into the performance? That's always been the main question. And now I don't have that outlet. Like, how can I bring the audience without touching them or without even looking at them? You know, or not even being in the same space. You know, and I think that's what COVID brought up to us. You know, it's like, we don't have this. We're taking this. What you gonna do now? Yeah.
Also a question of you. Do you feel this time of COVID change something? Will it be different what you will be doing? Let's say next year everybody has vaccinations and things will go back to normal in 22 or late 21.
But what is normal? What is normal, though? What is normal? Are we going back to normal? I highly doubt it. Well, I mean, normal is gonna have to change. I think it should change, because normal.
Have you changed?
Obviously,
has your work changed? Does Límite do you think something will be different because of this year?
Yes, there was this aspect of the living that was, and I used to say this to Judith, that I said, you know, this is very dictatorship sometimes. It's like a cult sometimes, you know? And she was like, well, what if we're a cult? It doesn't matter. You know, she wouldn't deny it. And I feel like what is different is that, and I think she wants us to evolve, is that it's not really about, like what Dennis said, about belief really, but it's about why we do what we do. And that why can be as simple as just, I want to do it. My heart wants to do it. And or, you know, the why of the particular project, like the particular project of beginning, middle, ending, was we wanted everyone to be connected. We wanted everyone to be connected at this time. So the impulse of why we do what we do has changed, I think. There's isolation, so there's more need to be connected. There's everything that's happening politically has changed as well, you know. We respond to that time at that time. And I know that's very transient, and that's not like, even Dennis is our guide in a lot of ways, you know. He's our he puts us back in check. And you know, we had a meeting recently that was like, what's our vision, you know? And we all kind of like you know, shy away, because I think it's really about not the vision, because it's always changing. It's about why we're doing what we're doing at that time, which is the true meaning of Zen and presence.
And I think, you know, what's going to happen next would be, it reminds us more how much we want to do in-person performance, how much we want to dive more into what it means by participation in a theater production. What is participatory? How much control do we have, and how much control should we let go so that something that's totally new can come out from a production itself with the audience members? And also how much more in terms of how therapeutic each production should be, and how much more power that we should offer people so that they feel liberated when they are coming to work with us. And those things, you know, after this COVID, I believe that we all have feel very strongly about these elements, these values that we want to carry on moving forward, wherever the production might be, even if it's just on Zoom or on social media. Those are the things that we don't want to lose. And thanks to COVID, we were reminded those core values that we learned from the living theater moving forward.
Right. And in terms of logistics, the goal is to do more live performances with live audiences. But just like in the film world, there's a COVID officer who is responsible for keeping the production safe. And if that's what we need to do, and create an audience space 6 feet apart, actors 6 feet apart, maybe that's exciting. Out of necessity, you know, coming the true truth. Out of necessity coming the truth, basically. If we need to adjust for that, that is something we'll do. And maybe we'll keep some of the digital formats that we've developed in some way. But the Liminal Archive was designed or conceived to grow with us through this time. So it started as writing and became these digital imprints that we post online. And from that, we will take that and form it into a script that could be performed. And perhaps the digital elements could be presented during that live performance. But we want it to, we don't know what's going to happen with it, because we're looking towards the future and still developing that. But it will have its rules and its limits, and we'll embrace those limits.
And content-wise, very interestingly, throughout this year, we have been discussing about the issues that we care so much, especially the political issues. It's not between Biden or Trump. There's something that's deeper that troubles everybody's daily life, the income inequality and all that. And then because we had so much time on the internet, we started to connect the dots. What happened in Peru? Why were they on the street fighting? What happened to the yellow vests? Why were they on the street fighting? What happened to India? We started making all those stats and realized there is one big fundamental thing that's troubling everybody in this world. It's beyond Biden or Trump. Those are just symptoms. So we always come back and then check in. What are the things we really want to deal with? What's our next productions gonna like? How do we speak on those issues? How do we incorporate as many voices, as different voices, not just from, you know, the racial diversity within America, but on the global stage? What are the people arguing about? What do they care? How do we make sure that this message is as universal as possible and really go into the very core, that cause human suffering. I think that's something that we have been discussing and talking about moving forward.
There's also an incredible platform, maybe you want to talk about that, Dennis, that you created to unify all of us, where we can post images, and maybe you want to talk about that platform, because I think that's really helpful to other people as well.
Oh yeah, it's just a platform that, you know, we're moving to the new technological world. Some platforms that help building a company, a collective, like Slack or Trello, those like really new app that actually bring us even closer together, because that's the platform that we can throw in ideas at any time. And it's
Do you
always,
use Slack or Trello? What do you use?
we use Trello.
Trello. Yeah, that's interesting. That's something that's more or less designed for a business context, for, you know, units working together for an advertising project or build a new car, that a company takes it and you have it as a mode of communication. You twist and use something that's existing for something different.
Yeah, why not? If there's a tool, the tool should be available for everybody. And especially in America, if we only think of corporate, we can never create a space for artists. And if we utilize all those apps, at the end of the day, if we don't find anything that's satisfactory to us, we can represent our voices as an artist and say like, hey, you need to change. And that's essentially what Union was all about in the very beginning. We unify people's voice and then demand change.
Yeah, and Trello is $5, you know, it's easy access. What about TikTok? TikTok is a world that people engage with. We look down to it, but it's becoming a phenomenon. And now theater artists are going on it, short messages, but people actually listen to it. There's a following.
We had a meeting about that. Oh, with Peter.
Are you going to use that? Are you going to say, you know, why not? That
I forgot about Peter. We talked
get
about
a following worldwide. Are you working on that?
I mean, we definitely talked about it. We said, if we want to reach to the next generation, we definitely need to incorporate that platform, which means, you know, there's definitely like opposing voices within our group. Like, why do we have to go into TikTok? Because it's such a like a trendy thing. But what we think about is we utilize that very example of the teenagers unifying themselves to book the tickets to Trump rally and didn't show up. That was a social movement. And how are we going to utilize this platform to create something that actually, to create a direct action that disrupts the social order to its extreme? And if TikTok is the platform, why not? So that was one of the voices. And the other one, of course, is the concern about the privacy issue, the personal freedom and all that. So we're still ongoing in terms of the debate, but I think a lot of us are very open-minded in terms of like, how do we incorporate all the tools out there so that our voice can be heard.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. We are coming closer to the end of our talk. So this is for our viewers. You know, this is interesting. There's a company that came out of a company that dates back, I think Living Theater was founded 48 or 49, and developed methods. You are remoduling them, you're reusing, repurposing them for the 21st century. I think your small mobile units, you don't have a theater in itself, you don't even have an office, you contract, you can as a small mobile unit connect in cities, even in countries where you have people who have collaborated with in Italy, Brazil, Argentina, wherever you would go, and you perform on the streets in the parks, but also in theater. Just looking at you guys here, the diversity in your company is outstanding. Everybody talks about it now, but you have done this, you know, for a long time in the living, especially also your company, without even thinking about it, you know, that it's now something that's being added on the web page, you know, to have that diversity statement. This is in itself, it was always an integral part of your work. And so this is quite sophisticated now, how you're also going into, you know, the digital realm and using apps and possibly working with TikToks. Yeah, why not? Your performances in Brazil here, or restaging on very short spots that might, when people inspire to come and see the full performances. So it is wonderful to see, you know, how it will be, people will be following your work to see, you know, what solutions you find, what better questions you will have, and so stay true to tradition, but also reinvent it. And that's why I think this is an important adventure you guys are on, and everybody listening out here, hire these people. I mean, it's so hard to create something there, of course, not subsidized, don't have that company structure of a nonprofit that is, being supported like the off Broadway playhouses. Soraya should be in a TV show and a lead actor and put the money back in, and Dennis could be directing other work, and Jessica does documentaries, Shadow is a dancer. So I think we have to support them and think about it as professionals, and they are great artists, and they're also evolving and developing, and now it is, of course, crucial. At the end of the talk, what are new projects? Can you share? What are new ideas? What you have? Whether you're going to happen or not? What are you guys working on?
Well, there's one other space that we're exploring in this new realm, and that's internet radio. And because of our germination as Al Límite, we met a group in Tijuana called NetNet Space that's run by Jaime Jimenez and several other artists in Tijuana. And they have developed NetNet Radio. And that's a 24-hour broadcast at netnetradio.com. You can just go there and listen to everything that's being played for free. And one of the elements that Al Límite can contribute to that is live readings, talks like this, and other digital audio performance experiments. So that's one thing that will start coming out in 2021 is on NetNet Radio performances and things from Al Límite.
And we are also talking a possible collaboration with the Freedom Theater from Palestine. We're trying to do something with them. So that's
and that will be digital, like a digital project.
What was that project that Leia was proposing for April?
Oh yeah, it's that Palestine Freedom Theater.
Palestine, okay.
Any plays are you doing or productions?
We're discussing devising a new piece in the same manner that we did devise Electric Awakening. Are you familiar with how we put that piece together?
Well, maybe you say it in a few sentences. Yeah.
I think Dennis can do that better than me.
We had a concept, and we want to play along mysteries in smaller pieces to just do a lot of physical work without language to convey a very idea, which means to confront the unknown. So we create a life cycle in different stages, and we talk about each stage. What are we trying to confront? And we simply just do physical exercises inspired by all the smaller physical exercises that we did in the Living Theater, develop further into a performance.
Right, amazing, yeah. And I'm sure you can do great workshops at universities, teach about the history of the living, the legacy of it. And again, it is I think, a way to do theater, a method that does work outside on the streets, in the parks, in the public spaces, engage with social, political context, environmental themes, as these guys, it was the pipeline or in front of the detention centers. A diverse group, that really reflects how New York City looks like, and to work together collectively. They say the big change perhaps is, that it's done as a collective. More people are responsible to it and will take artistic credit instead of the one person who might have done this before. I think what Shadow said, the idea, how do we bring people in to our spectators? How do we get close to them? Or earlier on, I think Soraya said, we listen. What does the community need? What can we do? And Dennis's idea, of creating sensible spaces, where people, even if they turn their head or listen for a moment, most people, of course, also I think will have a deeper impact. But there is something in there that this company has done for a very long time that in the time of COVID works, but perhaps it's also of significance whether there is a virus out there or not. It's a great form of theater. It's an important one that emerged and that is moving, that is growing, but also changing its shape. And it's something we all should and can follow. And also it's honoring the legacy of a great, great theater company that, like very few others, and some claim it has been the most significant theater company of the 20th century, the living, with the biggest impact, biggest success, and it changed how we think about theater. So congratulations, you guys, of a putting this out there, the work of connecting, creating your own community, but also community beyond it. And I really wish you all the best, and I hope that you also continue the legacy, maybe also to teach it and continue that work with the living theaters, but also through your company.
I just want to say one thing that I think that the strength of this company that is done and what we're open to is that I want to encourage people to not have any fear, no fear in this time. I think there's a lot of fear, and that creates a lot of more disease and more issues and more isolation. And so we are a platform that if you have an idea or if there's anything that you need, that we would love to like help in whatever we can with the tools that we have to help overcome that with and I think that what attracts people to the living theater and to us is that it's a non-violent form of invitation and of doing things as well.
Yeah, and Soraya is a healer also by profession, a highly trained one actually. So, and anyone, I guess, then go to the website of Límite, send them your projects, reach out to them, learn from them, or be part of it, or do your own company. I'm sure they will listen to you and give you advice or come and visit. This is also something we can do now. So thank you all for listening. Thanks for Halran. It's great that we had VJ with us. Tomorrow we hear from the great Nuyorican Poetry Cafe, from spoken word artists, a group of people around that is a really significant and groundbreaking institution that has provided New York City also with such significant work in the arts that it is really worth to hear from them tomorrow as a closure of the 2020 Segal Talk. So thank you guys for taking the time. I hope it was as inspiring to you as it was to us. Thank you for our listeners. We know how much is out there, how many content. It's now more and more talks. We started very early on in March, where I think we were the only theater institution doing daily programming from Monday through Friday, creating new content. Actually, we were the only one, I think, perhaps even in Europe. And so I think it has been a contribution. We're very proud of it. And it was for us also a way to survive and to be connected to people and share the suffering, sorrows, but also the beauty and the mysterious way art works. And we talked to so many artists, and I think it was a great contribution they gave us, the artists, listening to them and their voices. But thanks to the audience that listened to us, stayed with us. I hope that you will come back to us next year. We are also thinking, how will we go on? We don't know yet. We are thinking about it. So Happy New Year. And we hope that 21 will be better than 2020, a quarter year. And the election with Trump, with COVID, the Black Lives Matter, it's certainly a year that for decades will resonate through it. And we are part of it. We are part of it, but we also, as Soraya said, we are acting in that. We are actors. We have to be part of the change we want to see. We have to take action. It's about us, not about other people. We have to do that. And Límite also makes that clear, that what this is about is not that they are great artists, but they want to inspire people to change forms that are not working and to find new ones, or save forms that are good that we should keep. But we have to find ways to create the meaning and understand the times we live in, and art has been a great contribution towards that. So thank you all for taking your time, and all the best with your work. We'll keep following what you are doing. So all our congratulations of taking on that big shadow, that big theater that's over you, the names of Judas and Julian are to go forward, but in a way, this is also what mankind does. We have our history behind us. This famous angel of Walter Benjamin, who has the catastrophe in the back, but is looking forward. But it's, a mountain of rubble stands, and we have to see what the new times brings. But it's also part of the rebirth and the change that happens, and it's part of life. So thank you all, and see you next week. Hear you next week, and I hope you will all come back. Thank you. Bye-bye.